If you look at the quality of our leaders today, the issue of entertainment, destructive entertainment, the amounts of money that are being spent on people entertaining themselves destructively. And you see this happening at the leadership levels.
Sure.
So this is where the power of leadership learning has got to be.
Okay.
It's very, very important if you're serious about making a bigger impact than just the area of specialization.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, it is the Advent Pod SA, a timely voice indeed, and we are back with another episode. You know what to do. Please do subscribe if you haven't already. Today we're joined by a very interesting guest, and this is a guest that I highly respect. So guys, I pulled strings, okay, for this to happen. My guest is none other than Mr. Patrick Kulati. My leader, please. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Introduce yourself to the people and let them know who you are.
Thank you. It's good to be here. And I think you guys, firstly, are doing a great job with this program and this podcast, creating conversations that are needed at this time. So my name is Patrick Kulati. I'm a third generation Adventist.
Powerful. Yes, sir.
And what else do I say?
Okay, so now we'll go into a little bit of your journey, but basically the conversation we're going to have today is a conversation around leadership, right? And what leadership means in 2025. What are the deficiencies that we're seeing in leadership in 2025? But first, take us through how was Port Alfred growing up?
Well, Port Alfred is a small town.
Yes.
And those days when I was growing up, it was even smaller. It's this middle of the road between East London and Port Elizabeth. For those that do not know.
Sure.
Look, it was a poverty-stricken place, but very, very. It's beautiful when you look at it. I mean, if you drive there or if you Google it,
I know the lagoons there.
Exactly.
It's really nice. Yeah.
That's what people on the internet see.
Yes.
It's a beauty. It's a tourist area. It's called the Sunshine Coast. That whole area.
Yes.
So it's marketed as that, but behind that, there's the huge levels of poverty. So I grew up there in an environment of great happiness at home. It was. I mean, I didn't see myself as poor at all. But looking at it now, because I mean, everyone who looked like me we were the same.
Yes.
We grew up there, and, so. We were just playing. It was very, very nice to grow up there.
Yes.
Old values of respecting the neighbors. Your mother would tell the other person, listen, discipline him if he causes problems.
Yes.
And so that's what the kind of environment that we grew up in. But really, it was really poverty-stricken. We used to have one tap, maybe
For the whole village.
for the whole area, where people would have to stand in queues with their buckets, literally waiting for, and then that water would come in and stop, let's say in the afternoon.
Yes.
So everybody had to go at a certain time to make sure by the time.
Yeah.
Ablution facilities, like just those are the kinds of conditions that we grew up under.
Okay. So then you started, your schooling journey, and obviously you went into what you want to do for career. What influenced your decisions to go into the career that you chose, and perhaps what is the career that you chose?
Oh, it's very difficult to describe my career because
It's a global leader, guys.
I think the point I'd like to make, firstly, about career. Sometimes when you are younger, you do not know where you ultimately going to lead.
Yes.
You're going to land in your career. Because my first degree was a 4-year degree in education, teaching.
Yes.
But what led me to that, because basically if you think about teaching, it's about empowerment of people.
Mm-hmm.
It's about working directly with people.
Yes.
It's the teachers that I had.
Mm.
They had a huge impact on me, particularly a teacher called Mrs. Nkwinti, who was, growing up, the time I grew up, we had boys that would bunk school and all of those kind of stuff.
Yes,
Being naughty, and I'll join some of those activities. But it is Mrs. Nkwinti
Yes.
who spoke to me in ways that even my parents couldn't make an impact, but she found a way of making an impact and she told me then that if you are a black child, education is a key to success.
True.
Those were the seeds that led me to the kind of career choices that I made in my life. And I started off with education, but I never really taught in a formal classroom. But it's amazing how that training, that exposure, has actually helped me in what I do now. So you asked about my career. What I do now, I work for Good Governance Africa as the CEO there.
Yes.
So basically, it's more about leadership. It's about strategy development and execution.
Sure.
Because there's one thing to develop a strategy, it's another thing to execute.
True.
It's really about mobilizing your team behind that strategy and making an impact among the stakeholders that are key to your strategy. So basically, that's what I do now.
Okay.
And the seeds of all of that come from the conditions of growing up, in the conditions that I grew up in, the people that I was exposed to, like the teacher I was talking about, and many teachings that we learned at church. You would think that things like teachings on stewardship, for example, stewardship of time, stewardship of everything, they didn't have an impact, but they did, because how I show up has a lot to do with those kinds of ideas at the back of my mind.
No, that's powerful that you mentioned that. Have you ever struggled with imposter syndrome when you entered like big spaces? Now you're like, this is huge, So talk to us about that, because I think a lot of young people, probably they won't admit it, but they struggle with imposter syndrome, especially when they get into like big shoes.
Yes.
What was that like for you?
Look, it's a problem for many of us. When I started in my journey of leadership, I didn't feel confident.
Sure.
I didn't feel like I was qualified for what I was doing.
Sure.
And I didn't feel like I doubted myself so much that I would focus on the work which I had to do, even though the position that I was holding was a position of leadership. Up until one of my team members at the time sent me a note, just wrote me a note by hand, a handwritten note that said, you are a great boss. I was shocked, and I didn't expect it from her. But it made me to say, man, let me pause. It was like a lightning bolt that said, okay, I may doubt myself, but other people see something in me. For her to take the courage and the time to write it down, I took that piece of paper, put it in my wallet, and kept it there. Because now I needed to walk in that way that she saw me. I needed to walk, in the Bible called it the newness of life. It was a new mindset that now I needed to walk in and operate at the level that now was saying, wow, people, this is how people, at least this person is experiencing me. And I started to get those kinds of feedback later on. And it is that particular individual that helped me to really overcome my imposter syndrome. But now, talking about that now, Apart from the work that I do at GGA, I'm a trained executive or leadership coach.
Sure.
So a year, maybe I coach 3 people because I'm busy. But among the people that I coach are young professionals, especially specialists in the corporate world, or sometimes leaders. But what I find is that a lot of young black specialists, professionals, people that, for example, are like lawyers, accountants, auditors, engineers. Their boss or their leader identify potential in them. And they speak to me about, so what can I do to expose this person? I say, okay, ask this person to come to the exco and give a report and observe them, how they interact after they gave the report. Ask them to remain in that meeting. And then give me feedback.
Okay.
And then the leader would say to you, okay, come to the exco.
Okay.
You are a like a specialist in your area. You are a chartered accountant. You're going to present your financial report. Or if you're a lawyer, you've been asked to come up with a legal opinion. You put it there. And then the chair or the leader, your leader, is going to say, all right, we're going to keep him here. We want him to hear his views about the other people. So around the table, they're not talking just about your issue. They're talking about other issues, risk management, communication, this.
Everything.
Person is watching how you interact with what is happening. I say, keep notes to tell me. What I found was that a lot of specialists, highly trained and highly qualified individuals, shrink back to their specialization.
Okay.
When they're given an opportunity to operate at a higher level, which requires that they make an input in other areas which they are not trained in. Because that's how you succeed at the executive leadership level.
Okay.
You cannot just talk about finance.
No.
If you are a communications person, the expectation there is that you're able to listen and engage to different areas and engage and give input. That means that outside of that meeting, you've got to read widely,
research,
and so on, and research and do all those things. But what we have found is that the people that I was coaching them to say, these people have an imposter syndrome. They are highly qualified, masters and all of that kind of stuff. But when they have to be operating at the level where it needs integrated thinking, we need that they make impact elsewhere, they shrink back.
Sure.
So it's a big problem for black professionals. And it is the kind of people that I'm finding myself coaching more, apart from the leaders. But when the leaders tell me, they say, hey man, you talk to me about succession planning, but I've identified this young woman or this young guy. I see there's a lot of spark in him. I see that there's a lot of potential in her. Now, what do we do? Expose them. But as soon as they get exposed, they shrink back to their area of specialization.
Sure. This is critical, and I think basically talking to governance and how we are to present ourselves to lead. It's quite important to realize that you can't only focus on the technical.
No.
Right? You also have to be holistic in your approach for you to operate at an executive level.
It's very good that you are clear about your area of technical expertise. Because that's where a lot of your value comes in. But as you graduate, and if you want to operate at the leadership level, you now have to be more open and more expansive in your engagements. So you cannot just remain in that area if you want to grow. As much as you deepen your knowledge in your area of expertise, let's say you had a degree in accounting, but you grow into doing masters and so on. Great. That's fine. You understanding things better in that area of specialization. But your value, your greatest value, lies in you being able to communicate that to a person who's not trained like you. Because you learn to use the lingo of your profession. And you find that the person cannot be able to explain themselves beyond people that think like them, people that see things like them. So this is where the power of leadership learning has got to be. It's very, very important if you are serious about making a bigger impact than just the area of specialization.
Sure, this is powerful. Can you share maybe from your experience some examples of places you had to navigate with, information or knowledge that was not your area of specialization, and you had to contribute meaningfully to the conversation, and what maybe was the result in your hindsight?
Okay, one of the I'm not a finance person.
Okay.
And I'm not at all trained in finance. I did when I was doing masters. I did a module on finances and cost accounting and things like that. But it's not really something that I spend a lot of time in.
Yes.
But there are moments that I need to know what is happening. If we're going to discuss, for example, a budget, or a financial report, I need to be able to understand that.
Yes.
In other words, before the meeting, I need to take the board pack, the info or the report from the financial manager, read it, understand it, ask questions, so that I can operate at that level. It also means that because sometimes we have to do projects that, let's say, we're working currently with Africa Legal Support Facility of the Africa Development Bank. This is a financial institution. And we're doing research for them in terms of, evaluating a lot of things. Now, in preparing those proposals, I have to engage with the financial side of this because we've got to make sure that we're going to have enough money to do what needs to be done. But we're going to have some profit out of this this thing. There are many situations like that where I'm not a legal person, but sometimes we have to engage on legal matters. I remember years ago when I was the CEO of Habitat for Humanity, we're running a multi-million rand project in KwaZulu-Natal of building houses. I think it was about 183 million rand. Project in Mkababa, those areas there, Makapeni and so on. And, the negotiating of that contract requires that you understand risk analysis and risk management. You need to understand the legal implications of the contracts that you're going to sign, the finances, project management. You have to engage with the construction companies that are going to do the work for you, interface with Amakosi, the community, and all of those kinds of things. So that means that, you may be trained in one area, let's say leadership or, management in broad terms or communications. But, in your day work, you get to have to operate with these kinds of things. That means you need to take the time to think. You need to take the time to read. You need to take the time to analyze, take notes, do all of those kinds of things.
Sure. No, that's nice that you brought up that one because you did say you dealt with construction mafias at some point, and I think that was quite. The first time I heard, I was like, what? Those are things that you wouldn't expect, to have to deal with, like on a day-to-day. We're having a construction project, and there are these guys that don't want us to build.
Exactly.
And you have to go in and be a negotiator.
Exactly.
And you kind of touched it. You say negotiation is critical.
It's critical
to operating at that level.
Yes. You see, in that situation, we were working in KZN, and at the time, this issue of construction mafia was not termed as that.
Okay.
And but it's now being reinterpreted to say it's actually a mafia group. So there were these people that would walk around to construction sites and just come and say we want 30%.
Oh.
Somewhere. And so I had been there, and then I took off to Cape Town. I was based in Cape Town then. Then I got a phone call to say, hey, these guys are on site, and this is what they want. And I had to fly back, go and meet with them. Now, the issue is that these people are using transformation terms to cover,
to argue their case.
Yeah, to argue their case and cover their criminality. To say that transformation has to benefit people and all of that, but a lot of them are not even from that community.
No.
And we were employing people from that community. We had spoken to Inkosi, the local chief, and all of that, of those kinds of things. So the project basically was benefiting the people. The list of people that we're building for were from that community.
Yes.
They were working, they were part of this thing. So, but these people would come from elsewhere.
Yeah.
So they were misusing the concept of transformation, economic empowerment and transformation to themselves.
True.
And so I now had to sit down with them and show them how the project was already making the impact, because many of the people that were working there were being trained in supervisory skills, in site management, in timekeeping, all of those kinds of things as part of this project, which we were implementing. So the point is that fortunately, in that instance, they left, and they never bothered us again. I think the South Africa has become so lawless that kind of mindset is thriving. It speaks to the low quality of our governance and leadership in the country. It shows that we do not have the kind of leadership quality that we need, not just at the national level, but also provincially and locally. And unfortunately, we focus so much at the national elections, but governance does not happen at the national level in terms of its direct impacts on people. True governance happens at the local level, and unfortunately, people there do not even participate enough in governance issues, in terms of elections, in terms of who is in charge of this place and all of that. They do not participate sufficiently, and so on. So we have a leadership and a governance problem in our country.
And I was going to talk to you about that, the leadership deficiencies that we experience in South Africa today. What do you think can be done? Because we want to offer solutions here. We don't want to belabor the problems. What do you think, just an ABC of this and this, you are on the direction to, proper leadership, and then avoid this and this.
Let me just say, first and foremost, in my work day to day, I met with tremendous people, tremendous leaders, man, in governments, in the corporate world, in civil society. It's amazing what happens when you talk to these people. The view that they have about their country. There is a huge silent group of people in senior positions, including government, who are doing the right things. But the media focuses our minds only, and so that's why I appreciate the point that you're making, that we should not really be talking only about the problems, but we need to shift our mindset to exposing the kind of people that are doing the right thing.
Very true.
So that's very, very important, that the narrative of the people that are doing the right thing has to override the narrative of the people that are doing the bad things. And that is the role of the media. So, but you were asking about the ABCs that we need. I had a meeting with the CEO of Ethics Institute of South Africa. And we were talking about this, what is needed in terms of leadership. So we need ethical people. People that are going to do the right thing, just simply because it's the right thing to do. We need people that, the greed that is out there. We've got to come to a situation where we have personal ethical values as leaders. And unfortunately, this kind of thing is you don't easily see it anywhere. The media, we don't see that, we don't hear about it. But we need exposure of the kind of leaders that we need. And so that's the first thing that I think is needed, is ethical leaders, people that are going to do the right things. No matter what.
Yes.
We need to have compassion.
Yeah, that's a huge point. That's a huge point.
Man, if you do the kind of work that I do and other leaders do, you could be in a cocoon because you operate with people of certain, skill sets, levels, and so on. But if you don't expose yourself to the real life of people on the ground, what is really happening, so that you can develop a capacity to be compassionate.
Sure.
If you forget where you come from, I told you earlier on that I come from Port Alfred.
Yes.
Even when we moved to Port Elizabeth, when I was going to do my secondary school, it was the same conditions.
Sure.
Poverty and so on. So I still need to remain compassionate to people who live in those conditions. I must not be disconnected to that. Simply because now I'm part of a middle class.
Yes.
You see?
Yes.
The kind of material that I read, the kind of conversation that I'm having, they can be so disassociated from what is happening because we're in this echo chamber of people that are in the same kind of environment like us.
Influential and doing big moves.
Exactly.
Yes.
And I remember this example always come to my mind. Some years ago, I was living, I think it was my first job in Port Elizabeth.
Sure.
And we had the bookkeeper. I was working in the township.
Yes.
On environmental justice issues, air pollution, waste management, and all of those kinds of things.
Yes.
So we had a bookkeeper in town, a white woman who was a bookkeeper, very nice lady. And so I was going to meet with her. We used to have like receipts and taking them to town.
Yes, for evidence.
So I phoned her because it was going to be my first time to go into this meeting to their new office.
Yes.
Now she says to me, she assumes that I'm driving to get there. You're gonna take this street and so on and so I'm confused. So somehow we lose the contact because I couldn't understand because I'm gonna take a taxi.
Definitely.
In her mind, she thinks I'm gonna drive, and later on I realized, this person thinks I'm gonna drive was in her day-to-day work.
Yes.
She deals with people that drive.
Yes.
And she does not have in her frame of mind any other kind of transportation. So this is unfortunately what happens to even us. Many of us, we forget to look at the different contexts that people are in, so that diminishes our capacity to be compassionate.
Wow.
And I think we need to actually do that. And it is here that your Christian beliefs come in handy.
Yes, sir.
Because if you read the book, the Bible, in fact, even the books of Ellen White, Desire of Ages, and so you see, then it says Christ was compassionate, and he told his disciples, go and get something for these people.
Yes.
He had compassion over them, and we're losing compassion as leaders and as people. The other thing is, I think maybe it encompasses everything. Is about this idea of Ubuntu, and I think it encompasses the ethics and all of that that I talked about. But to the extent that it can accentuate and explain the process, that's a powerful, world-renowned concept that unfortunately we leave. If you look at the quality of our leaders today. The issue of entertainment, destructive entertainment, the amounts of money that are being spent on people entertaining themselves destructively. And you see this happening at the leadership levels.
Sure.
You know, the amount of money that corporate companies are spending on just parties and things like that. And yet some members of their staff are not able to come to work because of transport costs and things of that nature.
Yes.
There is a disconnect between the corporate world, the middle class world, and the kind of situation that we are in South Africa.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. No, that's huge. And I just want to remind the viewers that we're sitting with an author here. We're sitting with an author. His book is titled A Gap in the Cloud, I believe.
Yes.
And it's a book. It's available on Amazon as well as.
Yes.
So please do make sure that you look on the links below. It will be there. Make sure that you go purchase that book. And now we'll talk into your authorship journey a little bit.
Okay.
What inspired A Gap in the Cloud? Because I read a few of the previews like online.
Okay.
And I obviously picked up your story of coming into yourself. Talk to us about why you went into writing, and what did you discover about yourself, most importantly?
Yeah, before I answer your question on this book right now, earlier on you asked me about an imposter syndrome.
Yes.
What I didn't mention at the time was the fact that I'm working on my second book,
Right.
which is addressing exactly that. I'm working on the second book. It's now. It's actually. You sort of forced me to disclose it because
You see, guys, proper information on the Advent Brothers. Exclusives. Only exclusives. Yes,
I had been keeping it in wraps.
Yeah.
But in the next few months, the book is going to come out. It's called Take the Gap. Yeah. So it's basically playing off the first book, which we're going to talk about now. But it is written primarily for that kind of audience we were talking about earlier on.
Young emerging leaders.
To say, how do you transition? How do you take on opportunities that avail themselves for you? And in fact, how do you make those opportunities happen for you, appear? So that's that, and so you've made me now disclose that. But anyway, your viewers can expect that it will come over the next few months. We're busy with that project right now.
Sure.
Now, coming to A Gap in the Cloud, the book that I published in 2002. In fact, last night I was invited to be a guest speaker at someone's 40th birthday.
Oh, nice.
And then I gave her the copy, and one of the people that were there sent me a message this morning to say, we want that book, because I had to explain it a little bit. So basically what happened is that at the time that I wrote the book, 2020, we moved to Joburg as a family from Cape Town.
Okay.
We moved into a new area. Children were in the new schools and started a new job. So everything was just new. And then a few months later, we were hit by COVID.
Yes.
And everything rolls like we were stuck in the house. It was just a whole new experience. And people that I knew back home in the Eastern Cape and here, everywhere, were dying. People that were very close to me, literally wiped out. 2 members of the family, 3 members of the family were dying.
It was bad that time.
It was really bad. And so I had this fear. The fear is called atichiphobia.
Okay. Tell me about that.
It's this intense fear of what legacy am I going to leave behind?
Okay.
If I were to die now, Literally, I had that fear. I was looking at my children, and I'm saying, man, what is it that would say, apart from he worked there, but what is it that this person can say, we took from him, this is a lesson. So I then had a thought of documenting two major stories in my life that shifted how a lot of things for me.
Yes.
And so those two stories, one was a life-threatening illness that I had, a diagnosis of an advanced cancer.
Yes, yes.
That was the first one. At the same time, the second one was a livelihood-threatening crisis that sort of overlapped at the same time. So I was diagnosed in November. In February, March the following year, the chairman of the company I was running phoned me and said, we want you to close down this organization. We want you to let go of the staff, roll up the organization, and you also go. So give us a plan for the next meeting that we're going to have.
Wow.
So it was those stories which I thought, okay, when I looked back in this atmosphere of fear of what is going to happen in the future, I had to look back and say, what happened in the past where I had a similar kind of fear, but somehow I made it, not because of my ingenuity and things like that, but because God had a plan for my life.
Definitely.
And so then I documented those stories. Those are the biggest stories in the book. But then I did not want to write yet another book about a cancer survivor. There's so many of that.
Yes.
People can read that. But I wanted to take the reader into my mindset, what was going on in my mindset. I wanted to expose the role of the support of my family in that. I wanted just to take them through a number of other things that were taking place around the experience of cancer, and then talk about the decision-making processes I had to go through in order for me to recover. Sure. So one of the things that, for example, I did was what as Adventists we call the New Start program.
Definitely, yeah.
If you read the book, I think it's chapter 7 if I'm not mistaken in the book, it says a new start to get my life back is about the description of how I applied the New Start health lifestyle program to my life. Meaning the New Start is the acronym for N stands for nutrition. Yes. Exercise. E stands for water. We take those things for granted. Even though I had been a vegetarian, I grew up in the church, I was exposed to the health message and things like that.
Wonderful things, yes.
But water, for example, sunshine, all right? Temperance, air, rest, and trust in God. That is the backbone of that chapter. It's what I did, because when I was told I had cancer, I came into the hospital in the morning to run the tests. In fact, as another story, I like stories, you forgive me. For me to be even here to do this procedure, it was another miracle. Because your brother, or your uncle,
my uncle,
George, George Situbane, phoned me up and said, hey man, I'm running actually Dr. George, for those who do not know. I'm running a healthy lifestyle course. It's going to happen for over 6 months and all of that kind of stuff. So that year, because I have a principle of studying something every year, that year I was not doing anything. I said, George, okay, I'll register. We would attend the classes in the evening in Riverside, there in Cape Town. And George would run the courses. So he gave us manuals. Manuals, for example, for diseases, the symptoms, and how to treat those things.
Yes.
So I was looking at these diseases, and I looked at the disease of diabetes and all of that. But I looked at cancer symptoms, and I said, man, these symptoms, something's familiar with them. Lightheadedness, bloated, this and this and this. Man,
this is me.
Hey, but I never had any inclination that I was sick. But I would go to a doctor because I bled when I at my stool and so on. So the doctor would give me an ointment to put there and say, okay, go. I kept going to him, and he gave me the same thing. And we're reading about these things. I thought, man, and I went to read, how do you diagnose cancer? And so for the first time, I heard the term colonoscopy there. So I went, I went to the doctor and I asked him, please, man, I want you to do me a colonoscopy. He says, how do you know that? Hey, what do you know about that? But I said, please, I just need to do this thing. And I need to apologize to George because that was the last time I attended his course. I believe that I was brought to that course so that I can be exposed to that information. Indeed. And then I went and did the colonoscopy. I still, by the way, have those manuals even to this day.
That's lovely.
So if George is watching this program, I think he must be proud.
I'll actually tell him to tune in.
He must be proud of himself. And so I went. The doctor arranged that I go and see the specialist. So on this day I'm there. They are doing the colonoscopy. They're putting the camera. They're all these machines. Later, I go back to my ward to wait for them to come back and tell me what they found. So in between the time I got into the ward and the time they came, my family came. My wife, children, and the person who was looking after the children came. And then we were just chatting. They were laughing at my gown. And so we just a family chat. And then in no time, this guy, doctor, walks in, walking with a lady that I hadn't seen. And as the doors were swinging open, he's just blurted out, Mr. Kulati, you have cancer.
Oh.
Now my family is there, children are there, everybody's there. Now, what am I going to do? By the way, this lady that I'm with is Dr. So-and-so. She's going to take your details, oncologist and everything like that.
Wow.
So as I was talking to as this lady was talking to me, she was asking for my medical, and my mind came back to say, no, just stop this. Stop this. I said to her, listen, can I take your card? I'll phone you back. And I said, I want to go.
Okay.
I left the hospital. And to cut the long story short, I went to Be Free Lifestyle Center.
Yes, at Helderberg.
Yes.
Number one.
Yes. I went there.
Yes.
And I need to say this for those of us who believe in the health message or who don't believe in the health message. Never underestimate the health message.
Yes.
Never underestimate it. If you cannot subscribe to it or you cannot, for some reason you can't live up to it, keep quiet about it. But never run it down, criticize it, or say all nasty thing about it.
Definitely.
Just admit that for you it's not the time yet. But for me it helped me because I went to Helderberg at Be Free Lifestyle Center. They took me through the New Start program. And I tell you, for about 4.5 months between the time that I did my first diagnosis and the time I went to do another diagnosis at a different hospital.
Yes.
A doctor was a bit angry when he looked at my documentation from the previous one.
Yes.
And asked, why did the doctor allow you to
leave for
without doing that? And I said, no, it was my decision. And I told him what I'd done over that. And it did the same diagnosis process. And then at the end of that, the doctor said, well, Mr. Kulati, whatever you have been doing, it has reduced your cancer cells so much. Keep doing it.
Wow.
But we're going to advise you to take out a little bit of what is left in an operation and all of that kind of
Yes.
surgically. And which brings me to the second point, to the counterpoint I was making earlier on, because we need to be balanced, is that there are those of us who believe in the health message so much so that we denigrate your
Western medicine.
Exactly. I don't subscribe to that. And I believe that both has been brought by God to work on us.
To serve a function.
But the health message is more preventative.
Yes.
To make sure that you don't end up there. But in terms of treatment, it may not be there to actually treat something that's already there. It can reduce it. It can do if you really, and I support that 100%. But we also must not denigrate the Western medicine completely. There are a lot of wrong things with it, where the pharmaceutical industry is just putting pills and pumping us with all that kind of stuff.
Profits over people.
Exactly, that's that. So we just need to apply our mind. When you're going through something, you need to make sure that you take the decisions yourself. So finally, I did the operation, and I did a bit of chemo and radiography. But I tell you, they told me that I couldn't drive to the hospital. I needed someone to take me back, but I went there by myself.
Okay.
Every time I needed to go, I didn't lose my hair. I didn't do any of that kind of stuff.
Sure.
I'd go to the hospital, do what I needed to do, go back home. I would actually walk home because it was not far from a hospital. Because of the investment in boosting the immune system earlier on. So that's what I just want to say about the book and the story, the story in the book. Then the other side is about
the careers. Just before you go there, my elder, I think you know this episode the segment is called Whispers of Wealth.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So we bring in, people who can deliver on wealth conversations.
Okay.
And what you've just touched on is a critical component of wealth.
Health is wealth.
Your health is your wealth, guys. It is critical. And thank you so much for being vulnerable and sharing that with us.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, your health is your wealth, because you can have... my wife let me listen to a lady called Mbokas, former radio personality and TV personality. She recorded a video where she was actually in hospital going to go through before she died, and saying, we pursue money, we pursue this, and we pursue, but we forget about our health. And because health is wealth, and that's very, very important.
Oh, that's lovely. That's lovely. So then take us through how are you feeling this time now around, where you say you need to now close down a whole company. The chairman is like, it's time, leave.
Yeah. Man, I fought, and you must remember, I was fighting wounded because I had operations, I had all sorts of kind of stuff. But I decided that I was going to fight this decision, going to the highest level to really push back on this thing, including going to the government Department of Energy at the time, because the company was under Energy, the organization I was working for. So when that whole fighting failed, I needed to do this thing. Now I needed to say, how do I make sure now that this bad decision at least has good consequences for my staff?
Sure.
And so I crafted a plan together with my team at the time that said, okay, if by law you're required to pay, when you're retrenching, you're required to pay people 1 week salary for every year that they worked. We're going to increase that.
Good.
Okay, we're going to pay 2 weeks or even 4 weeks. And we're going to establish a fund, a capacity building fund, so that people that want to study, if they can apply and use that to and we had people that were sort of like cleaners and people like that were older, that were not interested in academic pursuits. So they said, okay, for them, they're going to tell us. I remember one lady wanted to buy and sell chicken. Okay. We bought for her chickens, we bought for her fridges, stove, and all those kinds of things, so that she can start
that
doing
little business.
that little
yes.
business. Another one wanted to sew clothes and so those are the kinds of things that we did just to at least make sure that the impact, because sometimes life throws you in a way that you cannot change the environment.
Definitely.
But how can you make sure that if you are a decision maker, the people that are impacted by that decision, because now it's yours, it's no longer the people, it's no longer the chairman or the board or whatever, you have to implement this thing.
Yes.
So at some point you fight, but at some point you shift and say, okay, right, I cannot change the decision, so therefore I need to make this thing work. So how do I make it in such a way that its impact on people? But you see, the biggest thing about leadership is people.
Definitely. Yeah.
Is impact of decisions on people. So that is how we decided to turn the thing around. So such that we've got people, for example, that we're able to pay off their bonds because of the money that they could get from that.
Very good, yeah.
And we provided psychosocial care for people. We brought in HR consultants to help people with their CVs. We, sent out CVs to companies and all of that kind of stuff.
Yes.
And the majority of those people managed to bounce back again and did well.
Wow, that's very powerful, and I think it speaks to being compassionate as a leader.
Exactly.
Right, knowing your people and knowing that they have livelihoods to sustain post their jobs.
Exactly.
And they're not just expendable.
They're not just machines that are expendable. It's a pen. The ink is no longer there. You just throw it and take another one.
Yes.
Because you see, the salvation is about people.
Yes.
We sometimes make it so complicated. It's about all the stuff around that. The doctrinal things. Those are important, but at the end of the day, it's about the human being, the human person. How do we make sure that, including governance, by the way, everything of importance is about people, and then leadership is about people.
Well, this is very inspiring, my elder, and I love how you integrate your stories into lessons that we can all learn from. Tell us about your speaking and public speaking journey, because I see that comes out a lot. So you're a keynote speaker at various organizations, mostly all through the year, I suppose. Tell us how that part of your life has played into building thought leadership and being like a voice. Because also I see on LinkedIn, guys, on LinkedIn, this man is here on LinkedIn, right? If you need motivational content, this man is here, right? So those kinds of things, right? You obviously branded yourself as a leader. Sure, that's perfectly fine. And just tell us how you think young people can gain from that knowledge of doing things like that.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that. So, firstly, talking about young people. I was never involved for a long time in media, social media. I would never see me on LinkedIn or Facebook, anything of that nature. Up until a young man came to me. I was speaking, I'm going to come back to the speaking thing. I was speaking somewhere, and then he says to me, listen, every time I listen to you, I found value. And I believe that a lot more people can find value. He started to paint a picture of me. He said, I'm going to help you with the social media thing.
Okay.
We worked together with that guy to create my Facebook page. I didn't even know how to do it.
Wow.
This young man said, listen, people need to see people like you. They need to know that there are people like you. They need to hear your thoughts. It does not mean that you have every answer, but at least your answer. Your answers, in my mind, I believe that the different kinds of issues that I'm dealing with as a young person, we can learn some of those things that you share. And so let's create a Facebook page.
Okay.
Oh, okay. All right. We sort of created it. I remember I didn't even have my login details and things like that.
Sure.
Because
he had.
And so he started to say, okay, start posting.
Yes.
Even some of the things that I wrote about in my book were some of the posts from posts that I put on Facebook page, and then we graduated to LinkedIn, and then and then created an X, a Twitter thing, but I never really took off on that part.
Sure.
Yeah. So this is where I see the value of young people. For people of my generation.
Oh.
You see?
Yeah.
Because that's where collaboration comes in. We don't value the kinds of things that you value because you know the environment more in which we live now.
Yes.
In my mind, if I focus on crafting, if I'm going to speak somewhere, I focus on crafting my message, on working on my message, thinking about my audience. And that's what I'm focusing upon.
Yes.
But a young person comes in and say, how do we
social media this?
Yes, how do we social media this? How do we expand this? How do we cut this bits in pieces? Okay. Even the fact that I established a YouTube channel came from that.
Okay.
From that conversation.
Yes.
So I do quite a lot of public speaking.
Yes.
And I had, if you come to my home office, you'll see tons and tons of books on public speaking.
Yes.
And so I read a lot of that kind of stuff. But growing as an Adventist, I grew up very young. Would speak in Sabbath school. We do verses, recitations, and so on.
Yes.
And so I've been learning. I remember we were back in Cape Town with a friend of mine, Lungelo Solombela, and we used to run together. I think he did a lot of work at Vets.
Yes, he did.
But he was in Cape Town, so I would tell him, hey, Jambas, that's his clan name.
Yes.
Man, I'm studying now on how to speak without notes, for example. And then, we talk about those kinds of things. So in other words, when you're preaching at church or speaking somewhere, how do you do that? So I've been learning to develop my capacity, my skill to speak in public, but not just speak, but how do you deliver this? I'm not saying I'm the best speaker, but it's a learning curve. So I take it seriously. It's a fundamental thing. So if I'm going to be asked to go and speak somewhere, read up, try and prepare, and make sure that I have a grasp on my content. Even if I do not know everything, but I have a grasp on my key points, grasp on my illustrations and examples and things like that. So public speaking is a big part of my leadership journey.
Definitely.
Because it helps me amplify my leadership voice.
Yes.
And so I do quite a bit of that in various contexts, both in the work that I do on good governance, but also in the church environment, in the youth space. A friend of mine is a pastor, Tando Milani, is a great friend of mine. We speak almost. He's my accountability partner, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah, he tells me as it is, and so we were invited last year to speak at SICA. By SICA to speak, to address 400 young people, young boys, who are writing matrics in order for them to take into that field. So those are the kinds of things that I'm passionate about, and I spend a lot of time thinking about them and making sure that my voice speaks on those things. Sure. And the clips or the glimpses that appear on the social media is that the primary thing behind that is to showing kids who look like this skin, that someone who grew up in the similar conditions, that's where the story of the book comes in, where I talk about Port Alfred, I talk about social conditions, is to say to a person who looks like this, to say, it's not like something happens, this person suddenly, no. The person grew up, it's a process. People like you, like me, can make it in the areas that they choose to make. If at least they have certain values that they adopt to. Values, for example, that we've talked about, ethics, compassion, humility, all those kinds of things. That is the reason why I'm on social media. I'm not. I have values like, for example, family. For me, family is value. So when I put a picture of my family there, is to say to someone who is it doesn't have family or struggling and so on. Family is still an important part. It does not necessarily mean that there are no problems. We're not going to get into trouble and things like that. But I'm communicating the message that I value family, not just mine, but family as a concept. If I put a post about the place that I'm speaking at, it's not about boasting. It's about saying you can make an impact at various levels. I never knew that I'd meet the people that I have met. I gave my book myself to Cyril Ramaphosa. Gave my book to Judge Raymond Zondo. Many other people like that. So it doesn't mean that I'm important in ways that are different to you. But it's just that I'm at a particular platform that I can send, and I use the book to deliver messages. The messages in the book are not really about me, are about how we can take personal issues and improve ourselves, but also how we can deliver at a leadership level for the benefit of communities.
This has been powerful, and I think we could go on.
We
could go on. But for the benefit of our viewers, and I think if they've watched up to this far, please do comment there in the comment section what you've learned from this, because you can't have watched up until this point and learned nothing. All right, it's impossible. So just maybe tell us in a few. So this is now on the lighter note.
Right?
Okay. So what does Mr. Kulati do for fun? Like what is his relaxing time?
Relaxing time. All right. I play paddle.
You play paddle?
You know paddle.
Which one is that? The table tennis?
No, it's a new sport.
A new sport?
It comes from America. It looks like tennis.
Okay.
But it's called paddle.
Nice.
So every week with my team at work, we go and play paddle.
Okay.
It's quite a fun thing to do as a group. You go everywhere. I mean, if you can Google it, you'll find it. It's similar to tennis, but there are different rules that apply to it. And it's amazing how it blows your steam. I do walks and runs. In the morning. I like watching podcasts. I was watching the podcast of a recording that we did sent in of Mr. Mpoma Kwana.
I remember that session.
You remember?
Yes.
And I was watching it this morning. It's amazing what you learn when you're exposed to that kind of stuff. Fortunately, I was there at that session, and a friend of mine from PE phoned me, I think a week or so ago. He had watched it for the first time, and he says, I didn't sleep that day listening to that. And now he is busy establishing a community event, a community campaign with their councillor and all of that in Port Elizabeth. So I like that kind of thing when I'm sort of sitting there unwinding and trying to engage. But spend time with family and things of that nature, and the group of friends that I grew up with. Anything between 20 and 30 guys. That we have a WhatsApp group. We talk about everything, and we meet. Some of them are here in Joburg, others are all provinces. And we used to actually meet every year.
Oh, interesting.
Just ourselves. We just go there, and we sort of put phones aside. We just chat. We check in where we are. Some people have health issues, family issues, business issues, and so on. We talk about that. But because of COVID, we had to stop. But now we've transported that toward online. Where we engage on various issues. Actually, we're going to meet again now in March. So those are the things that help me to unwind.
That's lovely. That's
Yeah.
lovely.
Yeah.
Hey, final thoughts for the young people pursuing wealth in the context of, being a humble, compassionate leader.
Yeah.
Whatever wealth creation strategy they go into.
Yeah.
Knowing that it's not about you.
Yeah.
What can you say to them as we close?
I think first and foremost, wealth is important. We don't need to
underplay.
No. It's important that you have the financial means to sustain your life, and I say this to my children. One of them is an adult now, so say to them, you need to be good at something that people are prepared to pay you for.
Yes.
We need to be good at something that people are prepared to pay you for. Now, if then that is the case, and it does not always mean that you're going to have to work in a company or something like that, or whilst you're working, you can create something on the side
hustle
that creates that kind of value. The other thing is this: you need to define the value that you want to create.
Okay,
it's important that what is the value that I'm creating for the people, for whoever it is, And I remember, I'll make this example. I got a call to go and speak in George for the NPA, the magistrates.
Yes.
And I was speaking there about how they could create, what value they create for society. And then I used a quote from the book Education, Ellen White. So I went in there, did the whole thing. There were all these magistrates, all these prosecutors and people that were talking. Then I came back, and as I was coming back, I got a call that, hey, there's a book that you mentioned there. Hey, what was that book?
Yeah.
Because my leaders told me that they would like to have something, like they would want to have that, and all of that kind of stuff. So you're sort of creating one level of value that leads to another level of value.
Yes.
It's important that we read, learn, because for you to be able to create value, you need to learn. You get value by getting value, but you create value by using the value that you got for the benefit of others. So young leaders out there, they need. So this is what I find is that people think that the position is the leadership, but leadership is something that you learn and develop constantly.
Yes.
It's a growth area. You can develop that capacity to lead. You can occupy a position without being a leader.
That is very true.
Yes, yeah. And it's unfortunate that sometimes in our church, when you see the sessions and things, I'm not involved with that. When you see the sessions, people are talking about, we want that person in position, but is that person a leader?
You see now.
Now, a leader spends time reading, learning, exposing themselves to other leaders. So young people who want to operate at that level have got to do that.
Yes.
It's not just about getting that position, but when you lead. John Maxwell talks about the concept of rubber band. You lead when you stretch yourself.
Yes.
So you stretch yourself by learning, by putting yourself in conditions where you have to make decisions.
Yes.
But another way of leading is when you interact with people. You have to decide whether you want to impress people or you want to impact people.
Sure, that's huge.
People for people to be impressed by you, they can be impressed at a distance.
It doesn't take much.
No, it doesn't take much. They can look at your social media pages. They can look at and they be impressed by this person. But for you to impact the person, you've got to be close to them.
Yes.
They need to see you. They need to get some things from you that can change their lives. That's how you make an impact.
Okay.
So we need to develop our capacity for impact making more than developing our capacity for impression making. Because what we see on social media is us making impressions about how rich we are, how this women. So even the resources that we have, as we accumulate from the side hustle, from the work that you're doing, from the growing and everything, what happens to those resources? I have a concept, it's a biblical concept, but it's better in my mind. I find it better explained in the Xhosa word.
Oh, no.
It's called ubhikiko, and I explained this to my wife.
Okay.
So, in the old time, you can also read this in the book Patriarchs and Prophets by Ellen White. So, it talks about the fact that if you had a field,
Yes.
you had to leave the edges when you harvest, so that people that do not have it can come there
And clean.
In Xhosa, it's called cleaning. Is called ubhikiko.
Okay.
Yes.
Interesting.
So, as you and I are earning a salary and living,
Yes.
are you creating opportunities for people to bhikika, to glean?
Yes.
That person who's going to phone you and say, "Hey, I don't have money, man. Can you give me this?" And all of that kind of stuff. Do we create that thing
room.
so that you can help people who do not have,
Yes.
apart from the intentional helping that we do, maybe through offerings at church and all of that kind of stuff.
Yes.
So for me, young people, as we accumulate wealth, we need to understand that the wealth is better when it is empowering and helping other people, more than just accumulating for the sense of accumulating.
When it just benefits ourselves. And
Exactly.
that's how we wrap it up here on the Advent Pod SA. It has been a timely voice here on Whispers of Wealth, with Mr. Patrick Kulati. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us.
Good to be
Please
here.
do like, share, comment, and subscribe. Make sure you do not miss any of our videos. Turn on your notifications so that you never miss any of our videos. And we love you, and God loves you too. Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Cheers.